this entire month of March, we have been dealing with how to identify and treat the RV virus. Look, you may not be able to get rid of it, but you might be able to manage it. And we're going to talk about that a little bit on today's Retirement Answer Man show. My name is Roger Whitney. If you're not been here before, I am your host. And this is the show dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement. We are here to help you rock retirement. And to rock retirement, you got to be really intentional. And you got to identify and acknowledge the major life change that you're going into so you can start planning intentionally for the future. It's not just about the money. Yeah, the money's important. You got to count the cost, but you got to figure out the rest of your life is about too. And the RV virus, which is something that hits a lot of baby boomers, is one thing that can bring a great purpose to your life. And we've been sharing some stories. We're going to share a story from our good friend Fritz today. Fritz from Retirement Manifesto is going to talk about his preparations for their embarkment on fully embracing the RV virus and hitting the road. So Fritz is going to share his wisdom. But in our Hot Topic segment, I want to talk about what are some antidotes, or the antivirus, I guess, to help you manage this without going all in on the RV lifestyle. But you know, we can't do any of that until we get to that all-important disclaimer. Boom, 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 boom. Hey, don't take advice from me on this show. I only give advice to clients that I work for as a fiduciary. You check that out at rogerwhitney.com. But until that time, make sure you think of this as helpful hints and education. And talk to your CPA, your financial advisor, your tax advisor before you make any decisions. Now let's get on with the show. So before we get on with the antivirus for the RV virus, I want to make note of the open enrollment for the Rock Retirement Club. We only open enrollment during certain times of the year, and March 24th to April 3rd, we are opening the doors. So let me tell you real quickly. The motto of the Rock Retirement Club is walk with the wise and become wise. So we have brought together listeners and fellow retirement journeyers that are intentional and working towards not just surviving retirement, but rocking retirement. And it's founded on 3 pillars. So it's top-notch education from myself and my team on how to actually do retirement. And this is education as best as we can make it that's unbiased and there's no sales pitch involved. So it's just critical thinking. Empowerment, tools and checklists and decision trees to help you take action on the things that you learn. And then lastly, inspiration, which is walking life with really smart, intentional, nice people that you can share openly with about what you're dealing with in a safe environment. So if you're looking for something like that, maybe you're a do-it-yourselfer, but you don't want to be all by yourself, go to rockretirementclub.com and you can sign up and we'll send you an email inviting you to a number of open enrollment meetings that we're having where we'll walk through, give a tour of the club, and answer any of your questions. We only open this up for a limited amount of time so we can get the right kind of people that we can walk life together and we can all get wise. So go check that out. In the Hot Topic segment today, I want to talk about some solutions, some alternative remedies to succumbing to the RV virus. Now, when we're getting excited about retirement, we're getting excited about having time freedom and I get to wake up when I want to and I can go anywhere I want when I want, all that freedom that we're going to have. And we couple that with travel, which is a major value or priority for a lot of people like you. You couple those things and you go to an RV show or you start to romanticize the RV life, that can create something that can be special for sure. We're hearing stories of that, but it can also create tunnel vision. You get something that you start to get excited about, or the two of you get excited about, and it's easy to think about it all the time. You go to an RV show or you talk to someone, you hear a story from someone on the show that, wow, I want that. And then you buy, you get an RV magazine, or maybe you go check out an RV website with the idea of getting more information. But what you don't realize is that those sites or magazines are not objective. They are already fully in on the RV virus. So they are going to fuel a path that you've already taken a step or two down. Not that that's bad, but what this does is it creates tunnel vision. And in the name of research, you start watching YouTube videos on RVs, and you start reading magazines and blog posts and forums. And in the name of research, that's what you're doing. But all of that information typically is coming from people that are either all in on it for them or have something or some agenda in terms of selling you a service or an RV or whatever. And we cannot acknowledge that consciously, and this tunnel vision can go, 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 go. So we end up buying the dream rather than necessarily the solution, right? Because the dream of the RV life, and I get it. I sort of got it as I've been talking about it this last 3 weeks or so. The dream can become a romanticized version, and we buy that romanticized version in our mind, and we can spend a lot of money on it, but we buy it in the version of the thing, the RV. Or I've done this, trust me, I've done this with bicycles, with Apple products. I'm a sucker. I'm a reformed sucker. Let me rephrase that. I am a reformed sucker. I've recognized this pattern of tunnel vision, and when I go research it, what's actually happening. So I wanted to offer before the house, before you, 4 antiviruses. Antiviruses? Antidotes? Ways to manage the RV virus? You get what I'm saying. For the RV virus. Number 1, and I believe I mentioned this last week in passing in the Hot Topic segment, is why don't you rent one? Renting an RV can be a lot less costly. I mean, you rent one for a month, I think it's in the I'm sure you can get from the $2,000 to $10,000 plus a month, but renting one rather than buying one, and we'll talk about that in a second, might be a great option, at least at the beginning, to help you determine whether this romanticized version matches the actual experience of being on the road for a month and dealing with all the logistical stuff. It might be a good cover charge to make sure that reality matches what's in your head. And there are great services out there, more popping up. The 3 that I know that are probably the biggest, RV America is one. I think those are the ones that you're not really incognito, I think, when you rent an RV America RV, because I think it's plastered all over the side, if those are the ones that I'm thinking of. RV Share, I think last week I shared some pricing that I just played around with. RV Share is another service where it's like a VRBO for RVs, or Airbnb, where you can rent other people's RVs, the sharing economy. Outdoorsy is another one. But that is, I think, the first way that you might be able to manage the RV virus without having to go all in. Now, the second way, find a friend and then mooch off of them. Well, you don't have to mooch off of them, but maybe you can rent theirs. There are a lot of people, I'm not raising my hand, don't look, that have RVs that don't use them, or have a trailer or a pop-up that don't really use them. By the way, for you that know me, I'm working on that, okay? I'm working on that. But you can find a friend that has one and they're not using it and say, hey, buddy, can I borrow it? I'll give you X amount of money and we'll clean it up a little bit or whatever, and do your own sharing economy with people in your network. Not a bad way to do it. The third way that you could maybe manage this without having to go all in is, and we've heard this theme, by the way, in many of the stories this month, is starting small, right? You go to an RV show, you get the romanticized version. You see that guy driving down with the big bus with the Jeep pulling on the Hummer being pulled on the back, or the big trailer. Well, maybe you can start with a pop-up. This week, actually, Fritz is sharing how they started with something small. I think Scott did too. and were able to almost get all of their money back out as they realize that, hey, the romanticized version in our head is matching reality and we want to take the next step. So I think starting small if you want to buy, and maybe starting small used if you want to buy, is a great way to do it. The last thing that I think that can help you, and this is what my wife and I are planning on doing, and we're starting our test this year, and you're aware of that, I think, if you've been listening for a while, is maybe rent a home rather than a drivable home, right? Because where do you go in an RV? Like Fritz is going to talk about his journey across America. Well, some of it, I imagine, is the excitement of the journey, for sure, because I love road trips. I'm a big road trip person. But a lot of times you're going to a destination. So, for example, this June, we are going to spend a month in Salida, Colorado, which is one of my favorite spots in Colorado, right on the Arkansas River. You got mountain biking, you got rafting, you got kayaking, you got hiking, you got microbreweries. We're renting a home. It sleeps 10. It's pretty new, and it's right downtown, which is cool. You can walk around. I'm hoping to just ride my bike everywhere. To rent a home for a month in June, which is a beautiful time if you like summer, in Salida was like $4,300, $4,400 for the month. Not bad. But maybe you don't like Colorado. Maybe you want to go to Jackson Hole and go to the Grand Teton Mountains and see that part of the world. I just Googled renting a home in June in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it looked like a beautiful home online that you can play around with it if you go to any of the rental sites. So it's $4,500 for a month in June in Jackson Hole. It's not bad. Maybe you're an East Coast kind of person and you want to see the fall colors, which I have never done. I need to go that direction. I mean, I've been to Boston, but I haven't toured that area very much. I did half Ironman in New Hampshire once too, and it was beautiful. Great, beautiful lake. Cold, even in the summer. But anyway, I digress. Let's say you want to go see the fall colors in Maine, and you want to have a majestic view. Well, I looked up a home in Maine for the month of September with a majestic view, and it was about $4,500 a month. That price range seems to be pretty consistent, doesn't it? And the idea, like with us going to Salida, is that's going to be our home base. We're driving with my Jeep, and we're going to have all our bikes, and we're going to have a garage to keep our stuff. Cost will be simple because we're just going to eat and, cook a lot and grill a lot, and then probably take little day trips to different parts of Colorado. So that might be a way to manage the RV virus. And for us anyway, at this time in life, because I'm 52, I'm going to be working while I'm there. This might be a way to execute on the romanticized version of what you want without having to go all in on the outfitting, the storage, the maintenance, and everything else of an RV. Doesn't mean you can't pivot later on. My wife, she's got the RV virus. It lurks, though. It pops up every now and then. So that would be another way. And I think at the end of the day, if you have this desire, it's about thinking about how do you make the proper decision for you that you're going to be happy with. And it comes down to, thinking about the cost of ownership versus the average usage, or with the average usage versus renting or executing on one of these versions of what we're talking about. The idea is it's okay to go all in on the RV virus. You just want to make sure that you're comfortable and happy with the decision, and you're not making it from a romanticized mindset, but from an intentional steward type of mindship. Speaking of that, let's go into the practical planning segment and talk with Fritz from Retirement Manifesto, who is one of the best stewards and intentional kind of guys that I know. So let's talk with Fritz, and I want to let you know that he lives in the mountains. So the audio isn't awesome. We've had some issues there, but I think the spirit is there, and hopefully it's helpful for you. So let's hear Fritz's journey down the RV virus path. All right, Mr. Retirement Manifesto guy.
Hi, Roger. I'm sorry. I've got a really bad virus today. You're going to have to forgive me.
You, sir, are on your, I don't want to say deathbed of the RV virus, but it's got you pretty good.
It's really serious. So I don't know if we're going to be able to. I got to go try.
Well, the good thing about
we've got the virus, Roger.
The good thing about this virus is if you have a proper management plan, it can actually make your go-go years amazing. So it's one of those weird ones that could actually be a good thing.
I think you're spot on. It's something like a lot of things in life. If you plan for it and that it's something that you really want and it's part of your long-term vision and you've thought about it and it's not a spontaneous thing, right? In our case, I think that's definitely the case. I like to think so anyway.
So what is the pull to having, to some longer-term travel in an RV? What's the pull for you two?
Yeah, we've talked about that, my wife and I, and we both kind of think it probably goes back to childhood, not to be Freudian or anything, but, both of us enjoyed camping as youngsters. And we've kind of got a theory that, if you camped a lot as a kid with your families and you've got good memories of it, that might have been where the initial seed came from. We camped all the way through our lives. We camped with our daughter, but we never really had, a really nice rig where you could go out for months at a time. So I think as we were thinking about what does the ideal retirement look like to us, we just wanted to incorporate something where we could really take some extended trips and do it comfortably. And we're at the stage in our life where we don't like to sleep on the ground anymore, et cetera. So I think it's really it's the epitome of kind of that freedom that retirement brings you. You're not only free from work, but you're also free from any particular geographical locale. And if you want to take 3 months and travel, guess what? Retirement's a good time to do it.
So have you guys, prior to retirement, been on RV trips?
We have been on some. I was working, obviously, so I only had, a couple weeks that I could take at a time. Several times we took 2-week trips. And probably the biggest one we took when we had a pop-up and earlier in our lives, we took a 2-week trip around the Great Lakes, up through northern Minnesota, across the upper peninsula of Michigan and back down. So that's the type of trip. That would be kind of an extreme trip for what we were able to take when we were working. Most of our trips, I would say, were kind of extended weekends. You'd catch a holiday weekend, 3-4 days here or there. And then maybe every couple of years, we'd go out for a 1 or 2 week camping trip, but nothing at all like what we're talking about doing in retirement.
Okay, so let's talk about this path to what you're about to start. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So you have a fifth wheel right now, correct?
Yeah, and I can talk for a minute about how we went about planning that into our retirement transition, if you'd like.
Well, I'm curious, before we do that, did you have like a gateway drug of a pop-up in the last 3 to 4 years, or how did you get to your fifth wheel?
Yeah, okay. We started out backpacking when we were first married. We moved to kind of a car tent. Then we moved to a pop-up. And then we had a smaller tradable trailer that we had when our daughter was growing up. When she got into high school and got busy with all the high school stuff, we actually sold that camper and we bought our cabin at that time. Part of it was we had my mother-in-law living with us. She had Alzheimer's, and we knew that going to a cabin is something that maybe, we could do with her. Our daughter was busy with the high school stuff, so we weren't really camping that much. So we took about a 4-year hiatus from when we sold that one until we bought the fifth wheel for retirement.
Okay. So now let's talk about sort of how you weave this into your retirement journey.
Basically, it kind of goes through your process where you kind of envision your ideal retirement and then you whittle it down to what's possible and all that. So as we were going through that process, probably 18 months, 2 years before retirement, and I actually did the show with you, Can Carl Retire? As we were going through that process, we recognized that it was something we wanted to do. So we started going to RV shows, probably several years before we actually made the purchase. And that was really helpful because you get to see all the different manufacturers, all the different floor plans. You get to decide what do we really want, and you really try to visualize yourself living in the various units, and you get a really good flavor for the options. So I strongly recommend people do RV shows. So we did that initially.
1 second, Fritz. We got to be careful here. You can't go to an RV show intoxicated with the idea of RV life yet. That's a recipe for disaster.
Good point.
And you are a very intentional guy.
That's where you get, yeah. That's an excellent point. That is where you can get caught up in the excitement of the dream without really thinking through if it's something that you truly want to do. So you're right. There's a balance there. But if you do have a desire to move in this direction and you're not just going to run out there and buy one at the show, it's a great way to see all of your options in the sake of, a couple hours, you can see all of your options.
Okay, so you went to RV shows and you started to do your research. Did you buy new?
We did. We went back and forth on that, and I'll tell you why we decided to buy new. Basically, as we were approaching retirement, we kind of knew how much liquid cash we wanted to have on day one. Bucket one, liquidity, cover, 3 years of retirement expenses. So we had a target amount in mind, and we basically built a spreadsheet where we said, okay, here we are, 18 months out. Here's the expected cash inflows that we're going to have. Right, we downsized from our initial cabin to a different cabin, so we made a little bit of money that we pocketed out of that. We sold some vehicles, we did some stuff, had some bonuses that came in from work. So we kind of put all those things into the spreadsheet, all the inflows, and then we put all of the outflows. Here's what we expect to buy for basically our retirement toys, right? We got some kayaks, I got a mountain bike, the camper, and we basically listed those things out. And we just did math, right? Here's the ins, here's the outs, and here's where it would end up being. And knowing where we wanted that ending cash balance to be kind of allowed us to figure out how much budget could we afford for the toys. So as we were looking at that, we realized, we do have enough budget in there, for a new RV, and they depreciate quickly. We know that. But having had them in the past, the travel trailer that we had, we probably had it for 8 or 9 years. So we knew that we had demonstrated a willingness to stick with what we chose for a long time. And there's just something about having it new. It's yours. Nobody else has slept in it. And we just decided we've got the money for it. We want to have the retirement of our dreams. Let's go ahead and pull the plug and buy it new. So definitely a more expensive way to go. We were fortunate that we had the ability to do it, but used as a much more feasible way or less dangerous way to get the virus, I guess. But, given that we knew this is something we were going to do and we've demonstrated a love for it over the years, we decided it was worth splurging. Sometimes you got to treat yourself, and we knew we had the means to do it, so we decided to do it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, and obviously from your blog and, all of our interactions, you're a planner. You're pretty intentional.
Yeah.
And so you had counted the cost very specifically as you went through this, which is super important. So you ended up on a fifth wheel, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So give me the logic behind a fifth wheel.
That's kind of where the RV shows really helped us out. We were looking at, you can go with the motorhomes where you're basically able to drive and walk in the back and all that, but then you got to basically tow a vehicle. You don't want to pull into a campsite. And then if you want to go out for dinner or something, you got to drive the whole unit. That's kind of inconvenient. So no matter what, you're going to be towing something in our minds. It's a question of, did you want to tow the trailer or do you want to tow a car? And that was consideration number one. You don't really avoid towing by doing a fifth wheel versus a motorhome. And then the second thing we thought about is, if you look at what are you going to be doing the majority of the time that you're camping, you're not driving, right? You're driving for, depends on what trip you're going to do, but let's say a couple hours, and then you're pretty much stationary for, a couple days, couple weeks, potentially. So you're spending the vast majority of your time stationary. And we decided that the livability inside the fifth wheel was just a lot more comfortable than a motorhome where you'd have the driver's seat. Sure, you can spin them around and everything, but you still feel like you're in a vehicle. So that was number one.
Okay.
Number two was the mechanical reality of it. If you've got a motorhome and you're only driving it when you're camping, well, it's still sitting in your driveway. You got to worry about the battery and, starting the thing up, changing the oil. Whereas if you're pulling it with a truck, which I wanted to have a truck for retirement anyway, we live in the mountains, I like to do a lot of landscaping and stuff. So I knew I was going to have a truck anyway. It was in our mind better to just get a box that you didn't really have to worry about maintenance when you're not using it. And, so that combined with the comfort while camping, I guess, were the two combinations.
Yeah, and I guess that makes sense too, from a maintenance standpoint, because mechanically it's a box, as you describe, right? I mean, you have some mechanics in there with the generator maybe and things like that, but if the box needs fixing, you can still get around town. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and so how many square feet would you say your camper has?
Let me do the math real quick. It's 35 feet long, so 35 feet long.
So you can tell a planner like this when they can do math very comfortably live.
So that's 280, but then we've got 3 slide outs. So add another, 40. You're probably pushing 320 square feet, something like that.
Okay.
It's got a living room with a couch and a couple of recliners and whatnot. Kind of a fireplace, TV console. We don't watch TV when we're camping. And it's got a kitchen with an island, a bathroom, and a kind of a master suite bedroom thing in the front.
Okay. And then have you gone on adventures with this already?
Yeah, we bought it. I retired last June, as you probably remember. So I'm, 8 months into retirement now. So what we did for the first summer, my mother-in-law was still living. She passed away in September. We're the only family that was near. She ended up being in a nursing home by that stage in her life. So we didn't want to be too far away from her. And we're like, that's okay. Agile retirement, right? Make adjustments as you're en route to, cross country in the airplane. So one of the adjustments we made was, rather than taking off and doing big cross-country travels in our first summer of retirement, we decided let's just do smaller regional trips. So we pretty much would drive within a couple hours of our cabin and spend a week, spend a couple weeks. We did take one trip up to Michigan to visit my family. So, we took a little bit of an extended trip. But for the most part, we kind of viewed it as kind of a shakedown summer. Let's do a lot of camping, get comfortable with setting it up, tearing it down, hooking it up to the truck, unhooking it, all the details of operating this thing. Let's get comfortable with that in year one. And then we'll plan on, at some point in the future, when we've got the flexibility to take off, we'll plan on the longer trips. And, unfortunately, my mother-in-law passed in September, but, the good side of it is we've got the flexibility now to do a longer trip this coming summer.
Okay, so what's the longest trip that you've been on it so far?
Up to Michigan. Yeah, we were gone about 2.5 weeks, and we went to a family reunion in Illinois. I live in Georgia, in North Georgia, on the Tennessee border. So we went from here up to Illinois for a family reunion, and then across to Michigan, and then took a little bit of time coming back through Kentucky and whatnot. So about 2.5 weeks.
Okay, and so what have you learned, you think, in just like that 2.5 week trip?
That we like it. I mean, we have no regrets. We love it. That's one thing about the fifth wheel. We'd always heard they pull a lot easier, and it really pulls nice. I've got an F-250 that we pull it with. It's big, but when you're just, cruising down the road, it really rides nicely back there. That's number one. Number two is the fifth wheels are much more difficult to back than a traditional travel trailer, a bumper pull, as they call them, where it hooks to a hitch on the back of your truck. Because the hitch is so much further up into the wheelbase, when you turn the front wheels to turn the trailer, it's a lot slower in responding than something is that's hooked to the bumper. So it took some practice. I went to a big parking lot near where we live and practiced backing it up. I've always been comfortable backing trailers. I've been backing trailers since I was 14 years old and working in a landscaping company. But the fifth wheel is definitely tricky to back. So one of the adjustments, we've had no problems with it. You just have to be patient and take your time. So two secrets that we've learned. One is walkie-talkies are wonderful. And we bought a cheap little set of walkie-talkies, and my wife will go behind the camper with a walkie-talkie, and I'll sit in the truck with the walkie-talkie, and we can talk to each other instead of having to yell out the window, right? Stop, what? What? So walkie-talkies are really a nice tool for when you're backing it into a site. And the second thing was we went ahead and made the investment in a backup camera for the back of the unit just to make it, because you can't see, right? It's a huge box behind your truck. You literally are blind. And the investment of a couple $100 to put a camera back there was well worth it. So those are probably our two biggest lessons thus far.
Okay. And now you are getting ready to embark on an adventure, right? This is two people setting off to sea. So why don't you give us a little hint of what you're going to be doing? And I think we're going to have some updates along the way on the show, but give us an idea of what the itinerary is. What's your itinerary?
I haven't even announced this on the blog. So all of the listeners of the Retirement Answer Man podcast are getting the sneak preview.
Well, I can control when this goes out in March. So if we need to.
No. Let it go out early. So we're calling it the Great American Road Trip. And my wife and I and our 4 dogs are going to drive across from Georgia to Seattle, where our daughter and our new little granddaughter are, and her husband. Not our granddaughter's husband, but our daughter's husband, obviously. So we're going to be driving across, taking a month to go across country, and then we're going to stay with them for a month, and then we're taking a month to come back. So we're basically doing a big loop of the country. We're going out through the southern states, and then we're going to go up the coast, and then we're coming back through the northern states and down. So this is our first big extended trip, and we are, very much in the midst of getting it planned and getting everything ready to go and getting the campsite booked and all that kind of stuff. So we're really excited about it.
Now, as you started, you said something that gave my mind a skip as you were describing your itinerary, and that was us and our 4 dogs.
Indeed.
So
none of them are as big as your dog, though. Your dog is like the size of all four of our dogs combined, I think. So it's really,
he's a big boy, but so explain to me because I've met your dogs and they're awesome, and you guys have a passion for dogs and rescue. So explain to me some of the logistical considerations in driving with pets.
Yeah, that's something that we learned. You asked earlier, what did we learn during these smaller trips that we did last summer? And one of the things that we've learned is, how to effectively camp with dogs. And it's really, they had a lot of enjoyment to hiking and, all the things you do when you're camping. So I would say that the biggest tricks that we found, one, and this was my wife's idea, we bought a cargo net. It's made to keep dogs, in a certain part of the truck. And it connects behind the front seats of our pickup truck. We've got a crew cab. So the entire back seat of the pickup truck is reserved for the dogs. And we basically fill in the wheel well or the footwell areas, and we just fill it up with dog beds. And they all kind of have their space. They lay down. If we've got to get in and out of the truck to go check in at the campground or, get in and out to check it when we're backing it up, the dogs are secured in the back because they've got the cargo netting that keeps them from getting up to us and potentially out the front doors. And they've just learned that. So they just stay back there and lay down, and they're nice and relaxed, while we're getting in and out of the truck, and they ride, fine. So finding a way to secure your animals when you're en route and potentially getting in and out is important. Number two is take your time when you're going where you're going. We are planning no more than 300 miles at any given day during our cross-country trip. Most of the days are less than that. I'd say 200 miles maybe on average, and, multiple nights in campgrounds along the way. So we might drive 200 miles and then stay there for a couple of days to give the dogs a chance to get out and not be stuck in the truck all the time. And then the other thing is, staying in state parks and places that are dog friendly and let you take your dog on the hiking trails. We hike with them every morning, every night, a couple times a day. And the last thing I would say is, get them to where they're trained, where they can stay in the camper. If we decide we want to go off and do something for half a day without them, it's no problem. We just keep them in the camper. It's air conditioned, everything's fine. And it's not that different than living at home. They just know sometimes we leave and they just stay in the house.
Okay.
So, it's very doable. 4 is a lot, but it's, it's manageable. We'll see how it goes when we do the Great American Road Trip.
So when you travel 300 miles, let's say 300 miles in a day with 4 dogs, with stops along the way, what are you estimating as the over-under in terms of number of doggy bags used?
Now, Roger, we got to tell the audience what my thought was on these check-ins. You want to tell them that? We're not going to do it.
You go ahead. Your wife thought it was a great idea, didn't she?
I think she killed it, so we're not going to do it. But Roger and I were joking about what part of the checkup could be how many, let's say, deposits have been made, in each state. So we can keep a little log and say, well, in Mississippi, we left, 8 deposits, but we decided against that. But I have no idea. You figure, probably once a day? I haven't done the math on this, but we'll fertilize our way across the country, I guess.
Yeah, well, we were actually going to create a map where we had pins, but that was just, we were just being silly then.
Indeed.
So as you go on this, what are your expectations for this trip? Because this is a big trip, and this may be, you could get a couple weeks in and say, well, this is cool, but, is this really what we want? Do you have any concerns about that?
Yeah, I think anytime you're doing something that's new, even entering retirement, right? When you first get into retirement, it's something you don't know until you actually do it. We're kind of viewing this trip as the same way. We've never done anything like this before. And it's, some people find that they don't like being gone that long, and that may well be the case. I think the cherry on the sundae for us is being able to spend an extended period of time with our daughter and her family when we get out there, right? So if we find that we don't really enjoy the traveling and the stopping and going, well, that's okay. In the middle of it, we've got a month where we're basically going to be stationary and living near our daughter and her family. So we'll see how it goes. I think we both have wanderlust. We love to travel. We love state parks. We've been careful in choosing campgrounds that, have nice hiking trails. We've been intentional to make sure we're not changing campsites every single night, because we know from our little 2-week trips that if you're tearing down and setting up every single day, that can get old pretty quick.
Yeah.
So we've tried to do everything we can on the front end to make it what we think is going to be, as enjoyable as it can be. And, if we get out there and it doesn't turn out to be what we dreamed, that's okay. It's only 3 months, 4 months, we'll be back home. And, next summer we'll do shorter trips. I mean, it's it's the joy of exploration, I guess.
Well, I'm extremely excited for you, and I'm excited that we're going to have Where in the World is Retirement Manifesto updates.
There we go.
On the show.
I might have to give you clues and see, like I'll say, okay, the state motto is whatever, and see how long it takes you to guess.
We'll do that. We'll do that on the show and see if we can get some guesses of what's going on.
Yeah, we'll have some fun with it.
I think this is going to be a good virus for you. I have no doubt, and I'm excited to hear about your journey.
Well, thank you, Roger. And I think it's great that you're focusing on this. It's something that, like a lot of things in retirement, you can do it for the wrong reasons and it can turn out to be really problematic for your retirement and your finances, or you can do it for the right reasons and make sure you're planning for it. And it can be a really nice compliment, to allow you to rock retirement. And I think in our case, hopefully it's been the latter of the two. And, we're excited to be taking our first really significant cross-country multi-month road trip. So we'll definitely keep you posted from the road.
Hey, welcome to the Happy Lab, where we noodle on how to live a happier life and generally just sort of, laugh. Hey, Nicole, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Are you getting the RV virus early with all of this RV talk?
I really like to go camping, but Clay is all into that like survival wilderness skills and stuff. I'm not sure if he's an RV type.
Are we going to see him on Naked and Afraid?
Yeah, he would totally be into that.
He would totally do that. Well, so in the Happy Lab today, I wanted to talk about I got shamed by a client.
I
got shamed. Well, we're sitting there and this lady worked with for 15, 20 years probably, 76 years old. And we got talking about, getting older and everything else. And I had mentioned that I had not gotten my turning 50 physical procedures, colonoscopy, things like that. And she was mad at me.
She should be mad at you. That's important stuff.
She was not happy with me. So I committed to her that I would do that within the week. And I just returned from the doctor, not from a colonoscopy, thank goodness.
I was going to say.
I just returned from the major physical and I got as much blood work as I could get done. I got the vitamin levels, testosterone levels, all those other things. And they're doing the EKG. And the nurse has me hooked up, it's down by my feet and all over my chest and everything else. And she reads it, and then she does it again, and she reads it again, and then she says, "Wait one moment, please." And she walks out of the room. That's usually not a good sign, is it?
No, not a good sign.
But then she came back, and I guess I had other EKGs there, and I have a very low heart rate. I'm a very chill kind of person, evidently.
Or heartless.
Okay. But thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
But anyway, it still made me happy that I knew that I should have been doing this. And it wasn't out of fear or anything, but it was just out of inattention, right? We get busy with our life and catching things early and getting that baseline. Super important. So I felt happier about that. So I think that's...
Yeah, it's better to catch things like that early.
Yeah.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a 7-day baby step to live a happy life and rock retirement. So in the next 7 days, my challenge to you is, I'm really debating whether we go with the health screen or we go with the antivirus for the RV virus. It's sort of related, I guess.
Sort of. I mean, people can always pick. There might be some people out there that are not really so into the RV scene.
Yeah, so far in the Rock Retirement Club, in our surveys, only about 53% are not interested in RVing at all. So if you fall into the camp of, hey, this RV thing is sort of interesting, but it ain't for me, well, then in the next 7 days, take care of whatever medical item you have been ignoring, whether it's starting vitamins, going to get a check, exam, stretching, get moving on it. And if you are already bitten by the RV virus, figure out how you can hack it to test it before you go all in with a big financial decision using some of the resources that we talked about. I think that's going to help you make the good decision for you. So, Nicole, I want to make sure, I need to check in here before the show ends. Are you getting overwhelmed with open enrollment, all the activity in our business and everything else. Are you doing okay?
I'm doing great. I mean, thankfully we have Tracy. I don't know. Have we talked about our community activator, Tracy, on the show before?
I'm not tangentially. Is that a fancy word? That
I don't
applies?
know if it's a word at all, actually.
Note to self, don't try to use words you're not sure of on the show.
Tangentially? Is that what you said?
Is that what I said? Anyway, I would tell the editor to edit this out, but just leave it in. I don't care.
Yeah, okay.
So
thanks, Michael.
Tracy, so she's been our community activator, sort of the lead on loving on people in the RRC, and she is now going to be helping us in a lot of things. You may actually hear her on the show, so that's been exciting. But
yes, she is awesome, and I'm so glad that we have her, and she's definitely helping me stay on course and not be overwhelmed. So
I would characterize her as a mature Nicole.
Okay, so I'm not sure that's a compliment to her or you're calling me immature.
I just had to throw that in. I just want to make sure you're okay because I can tell when you might be getting a little stressed because you start to have that I got to get stuff done bun hairstyle. Is that what?
Oh, yes. Well, that's not necessarily stress related. It's just, to-do list related.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for listening this week. I don't know. We just are having fun and I hope you're having fun too and getting ready to rock retirement. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.